This is Linux Unplugged, episode 16 for November 26th, 2013. And welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show that already has one foot out the door this holiday week. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
Hey, Matt. So we got a fun show today. A lot of things happening. Even though it's a holiday week, you'd think it's Turkey Day tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow here in the United States.
Tomorrow's Turkey Day.
No, wait,
yeah.
no, Thursday.
No,
Thursday.
wait, Thursday.
Sorry, I got my...
There's turkey all week long for us.
I've already got tryptophan all in my blood system. I'm a wreck over here, Matt, because all I can think about is that bird, and then just planning my turkey strategy so that I leave enough room for pumpkin pie, but not so much room that I eat too much pumpkin pie, right?
It's all about finding the right bandwidth for your stomach.
Right, and this is what you would think we'd be concerned about right now. But no, my friends, no. We have more important matters. Some big things are happening in the land of Linux infrastructure. You might be familiar with Docker. Now, that could be because I talk about it all the time. I talk about it too much. Maybe we should just call this Docker Unplugged. But this week, something big happened on the day we record live. A new version of Docker is out, and it promises to bring Docker to all Linux distributions. And there's only one way I thought to get the appropriate official word on the new version of Docker, and that was to bring on Solomon from Docker. He is the co-founder and CTO of the Docker project, I guess. What is the organization behind Docker, Solomon?
So it is now officially Docker Inc., Docker.com.
And that was a transition from...
Yes, from .cloud.
Ah. Right. .cloud was actually sort of signifies a big transition in how you guys are structuring your business, because weren't you guys more of a software as a service platform, and now you're kind of transitioning to the Docker project?
Yeah. So we're .cloud launched in 2010 to platform as a service. So if you're familiar with Heroku or Google App Engine, a hosted service that runs other people's web applications, basically. And so we've been doing that for several years. We still do it. The product is still there. We have lots of customers. It's a growing business. The change of name is really to indicate that Docker is just going so crazy and growing so fast that the only way we can do a good job at maintaining it is making that the number one focus of the company.
So, can we give just a real quick elevator pitch on what do you when somebody says, "Hey, what is Docker?" What do you tell them that just sort of makes it click for them?
Well, it depends how technical they are.
Technical. Don't be afraid. We have a brave crew with us.
So Docker is a container engine, right? It's a way to package and deploy your application in a sort of a unit that can be moved around very easily from server to server, and then executed on any of those servers in a very repeatable way. And it uses a sandbox execution environment that I like to compare to how iOS or Android sandboxes its application. So it's really that notion of it's one thing, you execute it, and it's running in its own little sandbox. It's not interacting in any way with other applications that may be running on the same server. And so that gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of power in how you deploy your applications. It makes it much easier to automate that.
And Docker is sitting on top of some new-ish Linux technologies to accomplish this. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
And what are those technologies?
So, I mean, there's three main low-level technologies. So the first is namespaces, and it's the ability for the Linux kernel to execute processes and have them not see each other, basically, to kind of sandbox them. So that simplistically, the process thinks it's alone. And so you've got a bunch of different namespaces, PID namespaces, network namespaces, et cetera. So a process can have its own network interfaces, its own process space. So when it lists all processes on the system, it sees only its own, et cetera. So that's the first. The second is one called C groups or control groups. And that is a subsystem in Linux that deals with everything resource allocation and resource accounting. So if your process can get a certain amount of something and another process can have another amount, that's C group. So anything from memory allocation to CPU priority to how much I/O you're allowed to consume, et cetera, that's all C groups. And so that's what allows you to run a bunch of applications side by side and do things like, hey, this application gets 100 megs of RAM, this one gets a gig, and they don't walk on each other's toes. That's number two. And the third feature that we've been using aggressively is copy on write file systems. Basically, the ability to take a directory, so take a file system and create any number of copies, a lot of copies potentially of that file system almost instantly with very little performance overhead.
And in starting in version, if I'm correct here, starting with the version that came out today, 0.7, is the file system area one of the areas that we're seeing some of the biggest changes for this release?
Yep, that's correct.
And these changes are what?
So what we've done is we've taken the underlying copy and write file system that we have been using from the very beginning, which is AUFS, and making that, moving that from a hard-coded default to an optional driver, and shipping multiple drivers so that you can pick and choose from one of you can pick one of those drivers depending on what your system supports.
Oh, so we're talking multiple Linux distribution support, almost all Linux distribution support.
Yes, that was
Nice.
the headline of the 0.7 release, which today. There's a lot going on in that release. I'll just start with that. We kind of made a list of 7 really important features that shipped with 0.7.
Yeah.
But definitely the one at the top is the fact that this is the first version that runs on a non-modified standard Linux kernel, which means that Docker runs on basically every Linux distro, which was not the case before.
That's awesome. I mean, so to me, what reason that takes Docker in a sense, not to diminish the other features, the other 6 features, but that takes Docker to a sense to sort of, in a way, becomes the great normalizer amongst Linux distributions, because I can build up an application and its environment on a Fedora box. I can get everything running, and then I can pick that up and I can move it over to a Debian box or an Ubuntu box and have the same exact performance, results, et cetera, that I should have on the other operating system, correct? On the other distro.
Yeah, it's like one of the big goals of Docker is to make that mobility easier, right? The goal is really that across all the machines that you have access to, from your laptop to your production servers to your QA servers, across multiple data centers, multiple infrastructures, in-house, public cloud, et cetera, that the commonality between all of those is that they can run Docker. And then you have this kind of big, really flexible playing field where you can just move containers around, right? And that's really, we keep using the metaphor of shipping containers, and I think at this point everyone's sick of hearing about shipping containers and Docker being the shipping container of computing. But it's really relevant beyond the, hey, let me explain to you containers for dummies. It's a really good analogy because a container shipping system is only as valuable as the sum of places where you can ship. No one would care about a worldwide shipping infrastructure that was supported by 2 cities, right? No one cares about that. It's valuable because you can ship anything anywhere. And so if you look at our roadmap for Docker, that's basically the goal, that you can install Docker on any of your machines on one hand, and on the other hand, whatever it is that you're developing and packaging, that Docker can package it.
So, and this packaging part of it is sort of one of the comparisons you always see thrown out whenever I talk about Docker in our chat room is jails. People compare it to BSD jails. But one of the differentiators here, and maybe you could go into a little detail here, is I could build a Docker container that has Apache and MySQL all set up, ready to go. And then there is a very Git-like way for me to take that entire instance and publish it, and then go to another machine or have a coworker or a fellow developer, who whatever the scenario is, pull it down to their computer using another git-like command, right?
Yep. Yeah. So exactly.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think there's kind of this constant. Over time, we've been Docker has been tested and used by a lot of people, and I don't know how many conversations about Docker I've been in, but it's a lot. And so there's kind of a pattern. There's kind of a pattern in the kinds of questions and reactions we get. And there's definitely one particular thread of reaction, which is basically, hey, this is nothing new. Jails, even in Linux, OpenVZ has been around forever.
Right.
vServer before OpenVZ has been around forever. Solaris zones, et cetera, et cetera. Even LXC, which is the kind of the newest of the bunch, has been around for a couple of years. So there's that question of, well, okay, big deal. What I will concede the expert sysadmin who has been using all these amazing things for years. I will concede that, okay, this makes it easier for the beginner, but beyond being training wheels for the real deal, what the hell is Docker all about? And I hear that all the time. And I think there's a big misunderstanding, which is that, Docker, we don't pretend to have invented this stuff. And we try really hard to make sure to constantly credit all the people building the really hard, important stuff that Docker is built on top of. So really, we're standing on the shoulder of giants here. What's really valuable, what's really new about Docker is that it's not just a new like a lighter VM, right? It's not just, hey, I can start a machine faster. I can sell a VPS for less because there's less overhead. It's about it's about creating a new unit of software delivery, right? And the keyword is delivery. It's moving things around, having that portable format and a portable runtime where you can specify in advance to the developer, here's what's going to happen when this application is run by Docker. And everything that I'm telling you now about what's going to happen will be true for every single installation of Docker everywhere.
And that's kind of a big deal. Do you suppose, looking into your crystal ball of craziness going way out in the future, as hard drives and bandwidth just become more and more plentiful, could actual desktop applications be delivered this way?
Oh,
I think so. I mean, our focus is definitely the server first.
Yeah.
But if you had asked me 6 months ago, I'd have said, well, maybe one day, but it will be a long time. Meanwhile, we have an entire subgroup, like an entire underground community within the community that is porting Docker to Raspberry Pi. Right?
Oh, wow. That was my next question, because it seems like the Raspberry Pi is it is the perfect device for this, because the overhead of virtualization is just way too much, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's a perfect thing, and there's plentiful. You could have dozens of them. You could move Docker instances around on all of them. I mean, so is that happening? Is Pi happening?
Yeah, so there was a big blog post. I keep reading about it. I'm just like, wow, who are these people? They're crazy. But yeah, it's Docker. We don't officially support 32-bit architectures. Mostly not because it doesn't work. It's basically there's an if statement in there, and if 32-bit, then fail. And they've removed it and then kind of went through fixing problems as they find them. And yeah, there are people running Docker on Raspberry Pis today.
Wow.
And likewise, so embedded systems, I think there's a huge opportunity for that. And desktop applications, I see a lot of that going on. Not delivering, not directly running the desktop application.
Yeah.
A lot of the intermediary use case that I'm seeing is people want a desktop environment on the server. They want a remote desktop, but they don't want
to junk up their main server OS.
Right.
Yeah, and they also don't want to set up like this one kind of special case desktop-y remote VM. They're like you have to go and click around to make it work. They're just like Docker run. There was this blog post about putting like I forget the name, an open source alternative to the Microsoft suite, like all ready to go. So you would Docker run it, and then you had an X window remote session, which would be tunneled through SSH, and then optionally on top of that you could have a VNC viewer, which itself had an HTML5 client.
Wow.
Wow.
So you had like your little
grief.
desktop in the browser,
Yeah.
and under the hood it was just a Docker container.
So while we still have that crystal ball out, looking at the future of Linux, this is such a great Linux solution. It seems to be that more and more people are getting behind, especially on the SUSE side of the fence, getting behind ButterFS. Any future plans? How does ButterFS play in with Docker? Because I know that there's some challenges there, isn't there? Like you couldn't use ButterFS in place of, say, an AUFS system, right?
So the short answer is that I'm pasting a link to you right now, and that's the pull request for ButterFS support.
Oh, well, there we go.
Oh, wow. There it is.
And so we're probably going to merge it this week, as under the experimental label. But
okay.
the blocker, there was a blocker. You're right, and the blocker was really in the internals of Docker and how our code was organized. It just had to do with the fact that Docker had AUFS built in, hard coded. And it took a little bit of reworking to make that part optional and pluggable and find the right API and all that good stuff. Now that and it took us a while.
Yeah.
Initially, 07 was supposed to come out a little earlier, but eventually we figured it out. And now that we went from 1 to 2 drivers, going from 2 to 3 and 3 to 10 is really not that hard. And so there's people experimenting with, a possible ZFS driver.
Oh, wow.
A Ceph, GlusterFS. There's some crazy guy doing something has to do with automatically syncing to BitTorrent. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but
Wow, that could be pretty cool too, though.
there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. And so that's really like, if I had to summarize what's going to happen going forward, since I still have the crystal ball, right?
Yep.
Before I give it back to you, there's just going to be more of that, of taking things that are hard-coded in Docker today and moving that to an optional plugin, defining an API, and shrinking the core. And we're going to do that for storage, for networking, for sandboxing, for service discovery, all of these things that, there's no single true way of doing it. There's 10, 20, and everyone has a favorite, everyone has a way they need to customize storage or networking or whatever.
Yeah.
They should all be able to do it through Docker.
I'm going to be deploying some Docker instances here probably in the beginning of the year because I'm a crazy guy and I like to have a kind of a really rapidly rolling system as my main system, but I can bring up in Docker, I can bring up a Zimber installation and keep it nice and steady and stable running on top of a supported distribution. And I just look at this and I think this solves so many enterprise problems. This solves small business problems. This solves developer problems, and it also solves end user problems. And I think Docker is one of the most exciting things happening at the lower levels of Linux. So happy to see version 7 out. But you guys are still not technically saying, hey, this is ready for production, are you? You're still kind of saying this. We're still working on it.
Yeah, I don't know how long we're going to get away with that.
Because people are using it.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I got an email. I mean, there are a lot of people who are very comfortable saying publicly that they use Docker in production.
Yeah.
And, basically we're saying, hey, we're not forbidding you.
But just a warning.
If you do it, you better know what you're doing because we're not guaranteeing that anything will work properly.
Yeah.
There's no particular reason. So people sometimes get suspicious. Like, why are you saying that? What's going to happen? There's no one thing it's just engineering good practice, right? It's
right.
new code. And we're an ops shop, right? We run people's apps in production.
Right.
We've been in that situation of, oh, cool, let's try that. Let's use it. It'll be fine. And then it blows up, of course. So, but at the same time, you've got Yandex, the Google of Russia, and they're freaking huge.
Mm-hmm.
You got Baidu, the Google of China, and they've got Docker in production on thousands of servers today. We got an email from a startup called Runnable, and they do like snippets of code, like they Google, like, oh, how do I do this and that? But then there's a run button, and you click, and you get a live running version of it. And they emailed us saying, hey, we have 500,000 Docker containers in production.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So, yeah, then, what do you say to that, right? It's like, well, okay, well, let me know if you have a problem.
Question from our chat room. They wanted to know, have you heard any indications if maybe this is one of the larger projects running using Go?
I think it's the biggest in GitHub, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know. We talked to the Go team and the core Go team a lot. I think, we used Go as a very kind of pragmatic decision process. We're a Python shop originally. We're not, Go fanatics. We're not really fanatics of any language. And and we kind of reached the conclusion of using Go. And started using it and liked it. We kind of had that kind of gut feeling that it was cool, as systems engineers, that this was something we could rely on.
Yeah.
And so far, it turned out to be completely true. It's a great language. But when what happened is, Docker kind of blew up. It became popular very unexpectedly, very quickly. We were certainly not ready for it. And we're still paying the price now. I mean, there's chunks of code that, you'll see, fix me, this should not exist. And it's been there for like 4 months because we didn't have time to get around to just cleaning it up.
Well, I talked to a couple of guys from the Docker project 3, 4, 5 months ago, can't remember now, on the Coda Radio show that we have on the network.
Yeah.
And my comment then was, are you guys ready for how big this is going to get? Because, I was a sysadmin for 14, 15 years. And this, I mean, let me tell you, I saw all of the problems this solved, so I can see how it's blowing up. Do you feel pressure to get to 1.0? Do you feel like it's building? Oh
yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah, a lot of pressure. I mean, there's just the pressure of, hey, a lot of people using it. You don't want to let them down. You want it to be worth it.
Yeah.
And now there's the additional pressure of, as a company, as an organization, a lot of businesses are betting their technology platform on Docker, right? So it's kind of this double. You don't want to let down your fellow maintainers and the community and give them crappy code and kind of disappoint them. And you also, you want to make sure that the business is betting their technology future on this. I mean, it seems kind of, it is pretty crazy just how rapidly things happen. I think it's just a matter of good timing. So yeah, the pressure is definitely there, but it's healthy. It's good.
It's also one of the sexier demonstrations of recent low-level functionality we've gotten in Linux itself, and it's kind of a neat way to see several like the 3 core components you touch on. It's a neat way to see all 3 of them used in a very compelling use case, and so I think that's resonating with a lot of people. And the fact that you're sitting on top of these established technologies like namespaces and C groups, I think people feel a little more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think it's just a natural fit. That's where I'm comfortable personally. That kind of that junction between low-level systems and higher-level APIs and platforms, and it's a very delicate. It's all about the art of finding the right balance. If you go too low-level, then you kind of lose the end developer.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? I don't care about this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go too high level, then you kind of lose touch with the technical reality, and you start doing crazy abstractions that are pointless. And it's a really hard line to follow. But I think it's a really cool challenge.
Yeah.
And the ultimate reward is when you talk to really hardcore systems guys and they say, oh, I'm glad you guys exist. You kind of showcase what's possible with the hard work we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
I think it's pretty cool.
Well, I just have the last couple of questions. One comes from the chat room, Bacon Flaps, which is always a great name. He wants to know if you could share a little bit about your team's the IDE you use and any kind of tool chain info you could share.
So we're first of all, it's very different from person to person. I am the least what's the word? Like I'm the least sophisticated person you can find in terms of working environment.
Yeah.
I use stock VI.
Oh, the like that.
On my little DigitalOcean VM, right? And I'm happy.
Awesome.
And I think, like, seriously, people everyone on the team makes fun of me because, like, what? You didn't tune this? I'm like, no. Then I'll have to remember how to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. I totally know what you mean.
So, and then it's funny because the rest of the team is kind of split between super intense, super jacked up Emacs setup.
Wow.
And then super tuned VI setup. And I'm like there in the middle, like, with my shitty setup. No other IDEs really. I mean, it is systems work. So we write, and my rule of thumb is, for example, I don't even have C tags configured. So when I want to look up the definition of a function I'm calling, I got to remember which file to go to and go look it up manually. And I also something that everyone else makes fun of me for, but I like it that way. That's kind of my canary. When I can't keep it all in my head just by moving around in files, I know it's time to refactor. The code's too complicated.
Oh,
that's my thing.
Good point. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to touch on before we let you get back to your Tuesday?
Let's see. Yeah, there is one. I mean,
yeah.
there's a whole list. Well, we wrote a blog post about the '07 release. So there's
You want to go through some of that?
Yeah, there's a lot. So I don't want to go through all of it.
Okay.
So I'll just encourage everyone to go look at it.
And I'll have that linked in the show notes, as well as your getting started guide that you guys have. Is great, and also a little info about this. We'll have the link to this, which you're about to cover, in the show notes. So go ahead. Yeah, any parts you want to go through, I'm all for it. I love it.
The one thing I want to emphasize is the support for links. That's because it's a small incremental improvement, but it's the beginning of a really important part of the roadmap, which is orchestration and service discovery, and basically going from one container in isolation to lots of containers working together on lots of machines and forming a stack that you can manipulate as a cohesive entity.
Interesting. Is this like networking ports? Like if I could turn on networking ports and open for everyone in that stack?
Yeah. So this first step, it's very simple. It's basically and the feature is called links. And what it allows you to do is basically connect container A to container B.
Okay.
So that one can discover the ports exposed by the other and connect to them in a standard way.
Oh, that's really nice. That makes it much easier.
Yeah. So typically you do, Docker run database, and then you'll say Docker run front end -link database. And then the database is linked into the front end. And then the front end can now connect to the database in a simple standard way. And it's very simple for now. It's local to one machine only for now. It uses the simplest possible means of discovery and its environment variables, which is both simple and easy to start using, and also limited. Like it can't change dynamically as the process continues to run. Right? If you want to attach a new dependency, you have to restart. So all of that we're going to fix in future versions, but the fundamentals are there, and it's a super, super important part of Docker's roadmap, because here's the thing. The way people use containers is as a group, right? Increasingly, if you got a single container, you can do things, but pretty quickly you're like, okay, this is great. I want more of them, and I want to wire them up together.
Absolutely.
Here's the risk. The risk is that, the risk is fragmentation. We've put a lot of effort in building this runtime that is standardized and works the same way everywhere.
That way, once I have a dozen of them, I don't have a nightmare of management on my hands, right? Because it could start to it could start to get really wily after you have 4, 5, 6, 7, a dozen, 20 of these things. Yeah. It could be really nuts.
Yeah, and so in the same way that we want any container, any image you get from the index, from anyone that produced an image from using Docker anywhere, that should run on a 100% of all Docker deployments the same way, right? And now we're reaching the point where a lot of these containers, part of their functionality is to be connected to other containers. If I build the most awesome Postgres container you can think of, and I share it with you, what you want to do with that database is connect to it from another container. So how containers can be plugged into each other needs to be standardized. Otherwise, what will happen is I'll give you that Postgres container and say, hey, here's my standard database container. Oh, by the way, you can only use it if you happen to use Zookeeper and Mesos, because that's what I use for orchestration. Or you need OpenStack Heat, or you need whatever. Mm-hmm. So, but to solve that problem, we need to just put in there the smallest possible amount of standardization, so that every container uses the same mechanism for finding another container, and then machine by machine, you can customize how it's done. You can still use Mesos, you can still use OpenStack Heat, you can still use all of those different orchestration tools, but the container doesn't need to know. So anyway, that's a really important part of it.
Awesome.
And there's going to be a lot more.
I can't wait to watch as more comes out, and I'd love to keep a line open to you guys just to come on in the future when you get closer to 1.0 as you build towards that, because it's such an awesome project.
Thank you.
We have gotten a lot of good response from our audience too. I think there's a lot of people out there are finding use cases for it too. So
definitely. And
one call to action, if I could just add one more thing, is if there's one place that I recommend anyone go if you want to learn more about Docker or just interact more or ask questions or complain or anything at all, it's the IRC channel. It's the one place. Pound Docker on Freenode. There's a lot of people. It's super active, and people are very nice. And I don't know about you guys, but I sometimes I kind of get a bad first experience from open source IRC channels because it can be really elitist and kind of it can make you feel stupid if you're a beginner.
Yeah.
And I'm it's up there in my top 3, things I'm most proud of in Docker is the fact that everyone is super helpful and nice on that channel. And there's like 600 people there.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I would say first thing if you're interested in any way, just go there and talk and just or hang out and see what's going on.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you very much, Solomon, for coming on the show today, and congrats on the new release.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And folks can find more at docker.io. We'll also have links to all of that good stuff in the show notes. And I cannot wait to see as version .8 comes out and then .9. And I don't know. I don't think I'm going to wait till .1, Solomon. I just have to warn you. I think I'm going to be putting it in production before then. But I won't tell you. I won't stress you out.
All right. Well, you know where to find me if you have a problem.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
All right, Matt. Well, that was fun. And how great was that? I'm glad that all worked out because I know they're pretty proud of that new release, and it sounds really great. So
timing was great. It was fantastic.
Yes, it was. He mentioned something in our chat with him that I think maybe now would be a good time to take a little break and mention to the good folks at home, and that is our sponsor this week, and that's DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is simple cloud hosting that you control. I'm talking, you get the root account of this bad mamma jamma, and it is yours. And DigitalOcean loves Docker. So if you're not familiar with DigitalOcean, let me give you the background here. DigitalOcean, simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy to spin up cloud servers ever. Users like you. Me, I do it in 45 seconds, but maybe you'll get it done in 55 seconds to spin up a totally your own server. Pricing plans are great too. They start around $5 per month. $5 per month gets you 512 megs of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD drive, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. DigitalOcean has data centers located in New York, San Francisco, and Amsterdam. In fact, I've got, last time I checked, there's 2 data centers in New York. And the way I've done it is, since I'm here on the West Coast, I decided I have some stuff here on the West Coast that I host out of my own house on my Fios business connection. And then for the stuff that I need to have a little bit better performance on, or stuff I just want to help supplement me on the West Coast, I set up a DigitalOcean VPS in I think there's like their New York number 2 server. Now I've got it on both ends of the continent. Both ends of the United States of America. It is really great for the functionality I'm using it for. In this case, it's BitTorrent sync with some supporters and a few other functionalities I need internally to the network. I pay $5 a month. But what's awesome is if you're like, yeah, I think maybe there's some things I could use this for, I'm not quite sure. Well, we can get you a $10 credit. And if you get the $5 a month system like I've got, that'll get you 2 months for free when you use the code Linux13. One word, Linux. You know about Linux. You like Linux, right? So use that code Linux. And then 13. Why 13? Lucky number. Actually, that's just the episode they joined us, Linux 13. DigitalOcean also offers a vast collection of tutorials in their community section, and you can submit to that community section and get paid $50 per published piece. So if they decide they want to publish what you've written, you can get a $50 bone. I think they probably give you, and I don't know if they give you bones or if they give you credit, but you get $50 from DigitalOcean. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. But I wanted to back up. So we were just talking about Docker with Solomon from Docker. And one of the things that's really nice, in fact, I'm going to go log in and show you this right now. Just take me a second. But so one of the challenges I've had is I'll get something all set up here at the house, and then it works well enough that I don't actually ever go put it public because the time it would take to go reset it up again is just, I'm not interested. I've already spent my time setting it up. It works. Like I started experimenting. The experiment was a success, and then it ends up in production, right? And it's always like, well, this is just going to be temporary, and then it never ends up being temporary.
Life gets you.
Right? So this is why I think Docker is going to be really brilliant, is I could take Docker, I could set up the instance that I want to create. So maybe in my case, it's a BitTorrent sync, maybe it's a Zimbra server. And here, I'll show you if you're watching the video version.
Yeah.
I go in, I name my host name on DigitalOcean, and I'll just call this helper. That'll be it. And I'm going to choose the $5 a month, 512 megs of RAM, 1 CPU, 20 gig SSD, 1 terabyte of transfer for $5 a month. Oh, they also have hourly rates. They have hourly rates if you just want to try something for a little bit. I'm going to choose New York 2. Now, so on the select your image, I can choose Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, Arch, Linux, or Fedora. Yeah, Arch! That's not any crazier than Fedora on a server, right,
awesome.
man? I mean, come on.
Not at all. Not at all.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
But they also have application images. And look at
Which
this.
Which is very, very cool. Big time
saves
saver.
you time, right? Yeah.
Right.
WordPress on Ubuntu 12.10. Docker 0.7. The version that came out today.
That's crazy, Tim.
Right there. I can deploy it on Ubuntu 13.10, 13.04, 64-bit. If I hit create droplet, I now have a Docker system ready to go, and I would just use that Docker check-in and check-out process. I would check in my Docker instance, log in over SSH, and just check it in on this machine, and I'm done. I start it, and it's running. It's like I'm all done. All that work I did, set it up on my local machine, I just upload it, I start it, it's brilliant. And this shows you how sophisticated DigitalOcean is to have version 0.7 today. And what's beautiful is inside that Docker container, even though this is Ubuntu 13.04 image that it'd be running in the host operating system, I could have a CentOS base in there, right? I could have an Arch base in there. I could have anything inside that container. It's just so awesome because it totally normalizes the underlying operating system, and DigitalOcean's down with it. And you load that on top of their super fast SSD drives and the crazy great bandwidth and the terabyte transfer you're getting for $5 per month. That's cheaper than a lunch at Jack in the Box, and you have an awesome VPS server that can just load anything you need. It's totally ready to go, and is totally a quantified cost. I think that's awesome. So use our code Linux13 when you're checking out over DigitalOcean, and you'll get 2 months of credit. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring Linux Unplugged.
Oh, definitely. And you got to love the fact that you are able to not only find yourself among the most bleeding edge stuff possible, but it actually happens today. The fact that it's being released today and it's there. It's like, what?
We thought we had the big scoop because we got the CTO on the day it comes out. Meanwhile, DigitalOcean's like, yeah, whatevs. We already have in production. Let's go. Hey, Matt.
This is CNN Breaking News.
A little breaking news here the Unplugged headquarters. Turns out Jack in the Box does not exist in the Southeast. So
seriously, really? I did not know that.
Now, my apologies. I made a reference to a crappy burger joint that I still sometimes eat at. That's not even in the Southeast. So
I'll take it up a notch. Did you know that the Waffle House doesn't exist up here?
Yeah, I don't know though, because I would tell you what.
To my knowledge, anyway. No.
Well, here's why I say it's so funny you bring that up. That's kind of weird, actually. So there's this site I just heard about called CoinMap.org.
Oh, okay.
And CoinMap.org is a Google Maps overlay. I think it's Google Maps that shows you all the places around you that accept Bitcoin. And since Bitcoin is the only form of currency I now have to my name, I thought I maybe should get familiar with the places that accept it. And I kid you not, and I don't know, it's ironic that you brought this up because I was seriously looking at this like 2 hours before the show. We hadn't talked before the show. But 2 hours ago, I was looking on coinmap.org, and this is Waffle Stop. All that buildup, and it's not Waffle House, it's Waffle Stop. But there's a Waffle Stop in Bellingham that takes Bitcoins for waffles.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Well, that figures Bellingham. Bellingham's they're pretty good at adopting new technology. Yeah, I'm not terribly surprised.
I'm surprised there's not a few medical cannabis stores on this map. That seems like a match made in heaven.
No, that's on the way to Anacortes. I mean, not that I know anything about that. So anyway. They get a drive-through going, right? Okay, yeah.
If you guys want to check out coinmap.org, it also uses, if your browser supports location APIs, it'll be creepy and figure out where you're at. So, okay, Matt, here's what I did. I brought in the Mumble Room, our online Linux users group, and I figured they could help us answer some of our emails. Since we're doing the show a little out of order, I wanted to get our guest on and talk about that because I'm a bit of a Docker slut, so I felt like I needed to chat with him.
Well, aren't we all?
Right. Well, it is pretty cool. So Eric the Great wrote in, and sometimes I make jokes here on the show, and what I'm about to tell you is not a joke at all. I'm 100% serious. Eric the Great wrote in a very long email, and he wanted to talk about how the problem with Linux on the desktop is that it's lacking apps. Ironically, Eric sent the email as an attachment in a docx format. Now, I gotta believe he's screwing with me a little bit here, right?
Oh, maybe. But he may have a point to a degree. Let's hear what he has to say.
All right, so it's so long that I can't read all of it, but he says industry-specific apps are either not available for Linux desktops or not as mature as they are on their Windows counterparts. Number 2, there's not enough software that's configured to work by de facto standards. Don't know what he means by that. There's no good desktop groupware clients for Linux that replace Outlook. Okay, arguably true, except for Zimber Desktop's pretty good. Number 4, the other thing that's a good Linux desktop needs is properly integrated features. Many times there's a piece of software that Linux just works well. EncFS is one of these, EncryptedFS. Unlike TrueCrypt, it provides it. Okay, anyways. And the thing to remember is the desktop should be usable offline. Oh, is Popey in here? Oh, the desktop should be usable the desktop should be usable offline for a small business when the server or internet connection goes down. I feel like his main complaint was the applications he wants to buy aren't available for Linux.
Well, here's the meat and potatoes of it that everybody fails to get is, and Linux users do it, Windows users do it, OS X users do it. If it doesn't meet my requirements, then it affects the entire world around me, and that just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. It's like, for myself, honestly, 99.99999% of what I do is in Linux. I mean, like, I literally, the only time I actually run Windows is when I need to run, for business purposes, multiple video conferences in Skype, and because it doesn't happen to be supported in Linux. That's literally, for myself, the only reason I would. So, and there's other people that have other needs. Maybe they have an AutoCAD need, or maybe they have other specific things.
Yeah.
But I think it's more task-oriented. To claim that the platform is flawed or not usable based on the fact that he's not finding it meeting his needs is ridiculous.
I agree, although you can apply that same argument to the Mac. But here's my take on it. It's like, if I'm Eric the Great, I'm good for probably the next 10 years, right? I got Windows 7's got support till until I don't know when, like for a while, right? And then even
2020.
then, yeah. Oh wow, geez, wow, that's amazing. And then even then, like, if I really, really still loved Windows in 2020, I could probably jump on the 8.1 bandwagon, install some crappy extra software to give me a start menu, and make it even for a few more years, right? Yeah, but like, there is a path. But even then, Eric's got to be sitting here going, man, I'm really about to get screwed. This is not going in the right direction. I mean, he's got to be sitting here thinking, what am I going to do? Maybe, I mean, not immediately, right?
No, but he hasn't experienced a pain point yet. For him, his pain points that he's experiencing is that he's missing specific applications that do certain things that he's used to, the way he's doing it, or that even its availability, and that may be the case.
And I think history will look back and go, boy, look at all of the things Microsoft did to enable their own downfall. Because I actually think extending Windows 7 support to 2020, what you're doing is you're giving time for alternative ways of doing things to develop. And people are going to come up with replacements. And I talk about this more and more now, where I think like video editing on Linux is a good example of something that will never match the proprietary commercial offerings. I mean, you can now buy, like, I don't actually know what the actual price is, but I think Final Cut 10 is like $99 and Motion is like $99. And you could make TV grade productions from those products.
You can.
That's not going to happen on Linux. And if it does happen on Linux, it's going to be too late, because things like Google Hangouts are going to get better, and WebRTC, where it's not really taken off yet, there is such industry support for that there's going to be products built around WebRTC. And today when we say video editing in the cloud, that sounds effing crazy. Well, by 2020, it's not going to sound that effing crazy, because it's going to be so doable that there will be software packages that clowns like me that broadcast from a garage can buy that use WebRTC, and I do all of it through my web browser, and then I just download the final file to my Linux box and apply any final touches to it. And what my point here is this is going to completely change the way video editing is done. So it's not that the existing method of video editing is going to come to Linux. We're just going to do video production in new ways, and Linux will be there when those new ways are developed. And I believe it is the same for CADs and all this kind of stuff. It's just going to take a really long time.
And it'll all run on Docker, obviously. I mean, I think that's, well, I mean, I'm just saying, it could totally happen. I mean, I've already seen early attempts at like online video editing, very young, very much not ready for prime time, and it's very, Windows Movie Maker level. But the stuff does exist. It's already beginning to happen, whether people want it to or not.
Yeah.
Visit the Google Chrome extension store sometime. I think you'd be surprised. There's a lot of stuff there.
Not Jupiter Broadcasting.
No, not there.
All right. So Craig writes in.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. We've today, like, connectivity is extremely simple. We got LTE, we got 3G, so it's not hard to be wireless and connected now. The whole Microsoft ad as well is just stupid. It's like, oh yeah, if you're not connected to the internet, you can't use it. That's not entirely true, but when are you not connected to the internet? I mean, I'm always connected to the internet now. Like, anywhere I go, even if I go into like the woods where like it's all Blair Witchy. And
Well, and I guess
scary.
maybe the better question.
What are you doing in the woods?
Whoa. Yeah, whoa.
Glamour
With your
camera.
laptop, too.
Yeah,
I
great
would
question,
challenge
actually.
Glamping.
Whole other
I
show.
would challenge him to run a Linux distro for a month and find those alternatives, because it doesn't sound to me like he's done his research.
I'm going to wager that this is someone who has. It's what I call a drive-by review. Well, basically, they stuck their toes in it.
Well,
They tried
come
it,
on. I mean, I don't know. Like, if I went to work every day and needed After Effects, I mean, that's just, it comes down to needing After
and that's
Effects.
fair. But I think he was happy where he was at. Someone probably recommended he check it out. He half-assed it. He tried it, and it's kind of like, not really for me. I'm happy where I'm at. He gave his honest opinion.
We got a lot of emails from people who say that converting to Linux is like, you got to understand, it's not just an alternative software selection. It is an alternative way to use your computer. It is.
Oh yeah, God! Me using OS 10 is like newbies trying to use Linux. I understand the frustration of stuff. Believe me, I scream at Mac all the time. I can't deal with it. So I understand switching platforms frustration. I totally get that. But then again, when I'm yelling at the Mac, it's because I'm half-assing it. Let's be honest. I got to own that. Right? I'm not trying. I'm like, this is hard, and I give up and I go back to Linux. It's fine.
Well, the thing about the Mac, and this is sort of the truth about the Mac. There's two ways to do things. There's Apple's way that they let you do it, and then there's no way to do it. And if you're okay with the Apple way, then the Mac will work for you. And if you ever kind of want to go outside that box, that's where it starts to become a frustrating experience.
But I'm a special kind of idiot. And, when it comes to using OS 10, can I do it? Yeah, I can do it. Do I find it to be the most ass-backwards way of doing pretty much everything? Yeah, I do. I can't deal with it. The way they lay things out, it's always frustrated me. I've always gotten grief on it. Well, an idiot can use a Mac. Well, then I'm a special kind of idiot. I don't know.
That's okay.
You know what happened was
he just can use it, want to, or two different things.
Well, Mac is also genius because when you move files and drag and drop files, it doesn't make a copy for you. It makes a shortcut, which everybody wants.
They lost me when I started ejecting stuff by dragging it to a trash can. I'm done at that point. It's like, you know what?
Hey, no. I know what happened was he used Ubuntu and then saw those Amazon ads. He's like, what?
Oh,
yeah. I mean, there's that controversy.
So
that's just a jab.
Craig writes in, he says, "Hey, Chris and Matt, I love Linux Unplugged, and I haven't missed an episode yet. Converting to Linux, even for a veteran admin, is something no one really wants to do. There are just too many distros to choose from. Going through the late 90s, like you said, on episode 15, is hardly heard of." I'm losing him here about this. Let me read ahead a little bit. "Upon switching, I had no issue at all, as I became more and more interested in computers and learning what the command line was. However, my situation was as almost perfect situation as it could ever be for a Linux convert. My girlfriend can log into Ubuntu 13.04 and open up a new tab to research something for college. My mother calls me with her wireless mouse battery's dead and proceeds to tell me she needs a new computer, and that's essentially all I have to worry about." But he brings up the point that it's just a big hassle to switch over, and it's not even a matter of being better, it's a matter of being of a familiarity, right? It's a matter of
that
comfort.
I agree with. Yeah.
And I go back to I look at this and I think he thinks that as you make the switch over, it's just kind of all going to be based on what your motivations are. He says, he said this is one part I thought was interesting. He said if each distro came together and focused on the major issues like video drivers, audio drivers, audio video editing, software, gaming, then Linux would be 1,000-fold better than Windows or Mac, hands down. And
well, and see, there's another one of those statements. It's like, okay, the video drivers and audio drivers, again, based on someone's personal experience where they're running a machine, which clearly is giving them some grief with it. I have no problems. But I run computers that fortunately are compatible with what I'm using. So, is it truly a widespread problem? Honestly, you really want to get to brass tacks. I would say Windows has more retroactive compatibility issues with driver support than Linux ever will. So, it's kind of like it's all perspective, I suppose. So, I mean, absolutely. There are people out there that will find that, they get a black screen when they boot from a live distribution.
Hey, wait a minute. Did you install the drivers first, or did you connect the USB device first? Because if you connected the USB device before you installed the drivers, it's not going to work. Sorry.
And it's really important when you have a Palm Pilot to not install the drivers and plug that in first, because that always works really well. I remember those days well. God, it used to frustrate the hell out of me. Yeah.
My wife has a MacBook Pro, and sometimes it'll sit on her lap, and she'll shut the lid. Right. And go to put it underneath the sofa, and I'll see the light still on, and I'll say, "Hang on a minute, that's not right." And my Game OS desktop, Windows 7, doesn't suspend. It flat out won't suspend. I've tried suspending it and it just doesn't.
Right.
And I've gone through all the knowledge base articles and I cannot make it work. And no matter how many drivers or firmware or BIOS updates I put on it, it just doesn't work. So anyone who tells me that Windows and OS 10 outclass Linux on the driver department is talking out of their arse.
Yeah, I've got
absolutely.
I've got one Windows machine left in the house. I booted into it 2 weeks ago for Coda Radio, and after I was done with that episode of Coda Radio, I went to shut it down, and it would only go back to the login screen. If I restart or shut down, it would only go back to... So the only thing I could do is log out and then just hold the power button down. It didn't matter what I clicked.
Well,
and it's just like, what? Really? This is ridiculous.
Well, and the one last one, my wife's Mac, her Mac specifically, it never fails. We go ahead and we put it in suspend. As soon as we're ready to go to bed, it comes to life, all by itself.
Hey, are you sleeping?
Time.
Are you
and it's
sleeping?
Always Facebook that kicks it on. It's like, what the hell, you know?
It misses you, man. It misses you.
Oh, clearly, yeah. It's beckoning.
Have you checked the iTunes store? Come log into iTunes.
I got a very special crowbar with its name on it. I'll tell you, man. Oh.
All right, so Bob wrote in, this is just a quick one. He says, great show. My experience with mom and dad users is that they not only need to use a web browser, but also an Office suite. I know many of these users who struggle with Windows 8. So I moved a few of these people to Ubuntu 12.04, where they're all able to get by without any tinkering with the default install. These users were unable to learn Windows 8 at all. So I disagree with some of the statements on Linux Unplugged that new users need to tinker more with Linux. I think the intermediate users probably do, but certainly not new users. Ubuntu and Mac are only two OSs that I found new users can just pick up with no help.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you define new user. My favorite new user is someone that has zero experience with a computer because they have no perceived misconceptions. And
fewer and fewer of those people now, though.
Yeah,
they're still out there, but it's
unless you live out where I live, out in the backwoods.
Right?
But,
yeah, you go out in the country, or you go up into the older demographics, and you can find them still.
I mean, we still have people chasing cows around with USB cords. It's scary, but yeah.
Well, Windows 8 really is. I mean, I'm sure I've probably overshared this story, but I'll just share it again in case I haven't told it on this show. When Windows 8 came out, actually when it was like, I guess it was done with RC or whatever, where you could download a trial for a limited time. You didn't have to buy it. And so I had a client that had 5 computers. So they had this room where they had QA people because they ran a website where they posted things that had to be QA'd all the time because they came from outside sources. So they had a team of about a dozen QA people, and they had about 5 computers that were not being used because they would only kick them into gear during the heavy season, and then during the slow time they would it was temp staff and those computers wouldn't be in use. Right. So I took those 5 computers and per the client's request loaded the 8.1 demo or trial on it, and which you could re-extend a couple of times, and I did have to extend it one time. So we put these 5 users of various proficiency. One that I would say he's definitely not a technical user, but he knows Windows 7 so well that he's showed me a couple of things. And I know Windows pretty well. I've used supported it for years, and so he's definitely sophisticated. I mean, he'd never know anything about like Event Viewer or any of that kind of stuff, but he probably knows about Device Manager, and he can definitely install printers and all that kind of stuff. Then I had a user who is pretty much still struggling with the fact that the mouse has 2 buttons and one of them does something different than the other button. So good range, right?
Right.
And
yeah, definitely.
None of them could figure out how to shut down the Windows 8 computer.
Oh, it's confusing.
None of them could, because the thing is they won't just go poking in the corners. They won't just go down there if there's no visual indications for them. And none of them even paid attention to the tutorial, even though I played the tutorial for all of them that comes with Windows 8. They didn't help at all. And the other thing that was constantly confusing for them was the thing they were QAing. They had to QA a version of it in IE and a version of it in Firefox and a version of it in Chrome. Well, because the IE one uses ActiveX, only the problem was the Metro version of IE doesn't use ActiveX. So, and they kept getting confused between, wait, am I in IE on the desktop? Am I in IE in Metro? And why is the address bar on the bottom in this UI, and why is the address bar on the top in this UI? And totally disconnected from it. And these same people, these same users for a short period of time were on an XFCE desktop and had none of these problems.
Chris,
because first of all, who the hell uses hot corners? I mean, that's the problem. So,
yeah, Chris, my friend was looking to update his laptop, so we went online, we found the model, we ended up with HP Smart, I believe, and it came with Windows 8. He's not overly familiar with Windows because when he was first getting into computers, I actually convinced him to actually use Ubuntu, so he's always been an Ubuntu user. He used it for a week, and he said there was so many weird things, like because there was a touchscreen, he said he would type stuff, and then Metro would just pop up for no reason at all. And he said it was just, and like, yeah, and he's just like, he got so frustrated, and like stupid things, like when he was trying to do like the HDMI out, he didn't quite understand. You got to slide the bar over, and then you got like to mirror it, but like it's not just mirror. You got like options for like screen resolutions, but the screen resolutions was wrong for the TV, and it killed like the screen on the monitor as well as the TV. Like he had so many hassles. He said, "Look," he said, "I don't care anymore." He said, "Just come over, put that operating system on that I've been used to because I absolutely hate Windows 8." I explained to him that, like, I'm not going to be able to dual boot properly because it's got UFIE problems. Right. I said, I can do the thing where you do like escape. He said, "No, I do not want Windows 8 at all." He said, "I absolutely hate it." He said, "I don't want it." So, people, and he's not very computer literate. He's pretty useless, to be honest, on the computer, but he can work his way around it perfectly fine. I think it's what you get used to using.
I realized something when Chris said earlier that people didn't know how to do the shutdown. And I have messed with Windows 8 and 8.1, and I've helped people like walk them through things. And when you said that, I realized that I have never shut it down on Windows 8. So I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah, it's I've worked with 8, and it's definitely but first you got to do the hokey pokey, and then you shake it all about, twirl around in a couple circles, and then finally it will appear. It's the weirdest thing, but
it's about 3 different options. It's really dug into
The funny thing about Windows 8.1 is that they brought back the start button, but not the menu.
I know,
So when people who have a start menu, like a third party installed, that the buttons are in the same place on top of each other, so there's like a 50-50 chance which one you click.
What a train wreck! What a train wreck Windows is becoming. It's so wow.
It amuses me. I'm fine with it. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I used to do PC repair, and Windows is what drove me to Linux. I mean, like actually repairing other people's stupidity is that's literally what drove me to it.
I've got two more emails, and then the grand question I want to ask you and the Mumble Room. But first, we should thank our second sponsor this week. Yeah. So everybody knows about Ting now, right? Everybody knows about Ting because Ting is sponsoring Linux Unplugged. Now, Ting is mobile that makes sense, and I want you to go over to linux.ting.com. Linux.ting.com will get you $25 off your first device or $25 off your first month of service if you already have a Sprint-compatible device. Now, guess what? My Nexus 5 shipped today. My Nexus 5, I'm supposed to... freaking UPS says I'm going to get it tomorrow. I don't know if that's possible.
I'm so jealous.
I am so excited. Tackling the poor man as he walks.
Well, I'm going to give him a handy. Are you kidding? He's
really now.
Whatever it takes. I'm excited to get my Nexus 5. And here's why I think this is a better time than ever to sign up for Ting. First of all, if you have the internet phone with the iOS 4 or 4S, iPhone 4 or 4S, now compatible with the Ting network, you go over to the BYOD page, which you can find over at linux.ting.com, and they'll give you all the info you need if you got a Sprint-compatible iPhone. If you got the Nexus 5, this is what is so awesome about Ting is they've been very transparent about the entire process because, first of all, they're a CDMA network, which is a huge boon here in the U.S. because that gets the signal through areas that GSM just doesn't generally penetrate as well. And so one of the things that a CDMA carrier has had to deal with for sort of the first time is a phone that requires a SIM card because that's generally something that's only on the GSM networks. And it's been really awesome and encouraging to watch the Ting folks very publicly in their forums and in their blogs work with their community, work with the experts. It's so awesome to see a cell phone company recognize that people in their audience know a lot about these Android devices and are very savvy and very capable of helping them have a better service. That's huge for me as a Ting user. And to see them work to get the Nexus 5 with their community has been awesome. And it's what gave me the final push to make my Nexus 5 purchase. I cannot wait to combine the power of purchasing directly from Google on Google Play an unlocked Google Experience Nexus 5 phone and then bring it over to Ting, which is no contracts, no early termination fees, and you only pay for what you use. That is such an awesome combination. And I want you to go over to linux.ting.com to get started. And by the way, if you're in a contract now and you've been thinking about switching, Ting is going to give you some early termination relief. You can get more information at ting.com/ETF. They're going to give you about up to $75, I believe it is, per line that you have to get canceled. All you got to do is grab your Ting device, port your number, then submit your ETF claim, and Ting will help you get out of that contract. And then you're only paying for what you use. They include hotspot. They include tethering. Their customer support is amazing. You can call them at 1-855-846-4389 anytime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. and just talk to them about the Nexus 5. They'll just talk to you about the Nexus 5. Like, that's you got awesome. Questions and how that's going to work, how's picture messaging, all that kind of stuff. You just talk to them. They'll help you out. They've also got help.ting.com, which gives you lots of resources. You can find out more information, do discovery and exploring on your own. So go over to linux.ting.com to get started. You're going to love Ting. It makes sense. It's no BS, no hidden fees. Only pay for what you use. $6 per line, and you can share it pooled minutes. It's really awesome. So I want you to go try it. Linux.ting.com and go get started now, because the sooner you switch, the more money you'll save in the long term.
Gotta love those guys. They keep my bills stupid cheap. It's great.
I know, it really is awesome. I kind of feel like I'm cheating a little bit. Like, I don't know.
Well, that could be interpreted depending on what you have in mind for the UPS guy. I don't know what you're mentioning there. It's like wait, what?
All right, so Carl wrote in. He said, "Dear Linux, please keep on breaking." What? He says, my typical day is I fire up Windows when I'm at work, because there's no efficient way to get around the fact that they have like a dozen proprietary Windows-only apps they require me to run. And since I already have Windows set up for work, I also get caught in playing Steam games on Windows because, well, if I got the Windows installation, why not, he says. However, as soon as the clock strikes 5 and the workday is over, I hit the switch on my desktop and boot into Linux. The best way I can describe that moment is coming home from a hard day's work and throwing off a stiff suit before putting on your sweatpants and cracking up a cold one. Heading out to the garage to restore that car or something like that. Linux will always fight me, which is to be expected since I have a multi-headed setup with 3 monitors of different sizes and resolutions, and I'm also sending my sound over HDMI to one of the monitors connected to my NVIDIA card. In other words, I'm begging for trouble with Broken X. But that's fine. That's part of why I love it, because when stuff breaks and has to be fixed, that's when you learn how it works, why it broke, and how you can configure it better than before. Hell, half the time I'm almost hope for something to behave unexpectedly, so I'll have a reason to sit down and have a puzzle to solve. He says, walking out knowing a lot more than I did before. And I think it's one of the hidden charms that keeps a lot of people away from the platform. Oh, okay. He says, and that allowed me to move quite quickly from hand-holding Ubuntu installation to running 2 servers, a laptop, and a desktop under Arch. I had everything just working. I might have gotten bored and jumped back full-time to Windows. But now, with the challenge, I press on. He says, most people can live with Linux. Tinkerers can hardly imagine living without it. Also, all this time spent on Linux has taught me a few still valid tricks on how punching my Mac in the face through the terminal when it's ill-behaved. Nice. Which is also a reward to itself, he says. Keep up the good work. Once again, thanks for the great show, Carl.
Good time.
I'm going to be honest. I think one of the things that keeps me on Linux is the tinkering factor.
Yeah, I mean, for me, for me, I think it's different. It's the consistent behavior. And, like I said, what drove me to it initially was the fact that I was watching, I don't want to say de-evolution of humanity, but it felt like it at some days, to where people were not only being dumbed down using these other operating systems, but quite honestly, it was like it was more operating system than they needed. That Linux could, in fact, fill these needs. And a lot of people, when I actually retired from it, I switched them over to Linux and then occasionally provide some remote support, and it works out really well. I don't have the problems I used to have with it. So, different strokes, different folks. So.
In fact, to put it all in perspective, Terrence wrote in. He said, and the headline was.
Matt,
go ahead.
Matt, I completely agree with that. If you're going to install Linux onto someone's laptop or computer, definitely install TeamViewer. So when you do phone you up, so you can it takes 2 seconds, TeamViewer in, click, done, and you sort their PC out for them.
Yeah. Or Splashtop.
Yeah, Splashtop remote access regardless of what system they're running.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. That was a real game changer for a lot of folks, for sure.
Mm-hmm. All of that's going to get real crappy. By the way, I believe I believe Wayland and Mir both proposed to make those remote viewers much more challenging.
Well, that's important.
Yeah,
because we have something we can really be proud of, but let's break it. It's
good news, everybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. It's like, okay, Dr. Nick, good to know.
Then we'll have to go back into the virtual machine remoting.
Yeah.
I help people out in Birmingham and stuff on TeamViewer. TeamViewer is like a must if you're trying to wean someone off like Windows or Mac.
Yeah.
It really is, yeah. You got to have that hand-holding experience.
I have not used TeamViewer as much because I don't like the. Isn't the client on Linux a wine app?
It is a wine. It's a
typically,
self-contained bottle. Yeah.
And see, with Splashtop, they actually have a native Linux app, and I use that to get into my mom's machine, and it's click click. It's so fast. I like that.
So in terms of for you mentioned Mir and remote desktoping, that won't be a problem for a while because the next LTS release of Ubuntu is going to still have X. So for the next 5 years after 2014, it's not a problem.
Right? Yeah. True. That's a good point. I mean, I guess that's the silver lining.
Good enough for me.
Good job. Wayland, however, proposes to introduce that problem. They are working on
those guys.
Oh, come on.
Wailing at Wayland today.
Actually, I think the Wayland guys are working with somebody from one of the VNC groups to figure something out. But it is good times. But I think all of this, I think we all need a little perspective right now. So Terrence writes in, he says, back in my day, insert old man's voice, back in my day, when I installed Linux, there was a distro called Slackware, and it was an unholy beast in its infancy during the late 90s. One of my beloved 386 XS's, it took 10 hours to compile the Linux kernel, and one misstep would ruin your install. Consider yourselves lucky, whiny Nancy boys that you even have a window manager or a graphical settings manager. There's no Google back then. All I had was a 500-page Slackware book that came with way too many floppy disks for the installation. Installing Linux? Go ahead.
He won it, Nancy boy. That won me over.
Installing Linux back in those days was a blast because it was an adventure with numerous pitfalls. You used Linux with pride because it was your baby, made with your sweat and tears. Linux is far from perfect, but I feel sorry for people who are locked up in Apple and Microsoft's jails. They are narrowing their dimensions of your cells every day, and eventually all that will be left with their services that they'll sell at a premium. Linux is the wild, wild west of operating systems, and may God bless Linus. Wait, Linus is our God. Terrence.
Wow. Tell us how you really feel.
Wow.
PraiseLinus.com.
Yeah,
really.
like the whole dramatic reading of that was
Thank
pretty
you.
good.
Thank you. Well, I felt like Terrence. I felt like I was connecting with him there. So I had one. We're getting a little tight on time, but one of the things that we've been looking forward to on the Linux Action Show is getting our hands on that new Leopard Extreme from System 76.
Oh yeah.
Well, so we just got word from System 76. It's better than that.
Oh yeah.
We're also going to get the new Kudu, right? That's what it's called, the Kudu. And we're going to get their Ultrabook with a brand new keyboard arrangement that they've just set up for it based on based on their purchaser feedback. So I thought I'd ask you guys, like, as we get ready to review these, what? And I'm going to start with Matt to give the mumble room time to think. Matt, what for you? What are like if you were gonna buy a computer, what are some of the key things you need in like a Linux workstation?
Well, and I think we already know that obviously compatibility is already set with Ubuntu, so that's a no-brainer. That's done. But I think a keyboard's a really big thing for me. Keyboard and the actual touchpad placement itself, how that feels. Do those keys feel responsive? Are they working for me? Because
so if you were in the market right now, would you buy a desktop or a laptop?
Ooh, based on current needs, laptop in a stone cold second.
Okay.
But based on like if I needed like both, I would probably say desktop first. So because I'm kind of weird like that.
Yeah.
But based on current needs, totally laptop. And I'm really, really specifically weird when it comes to keyboards and laptops. And System 76 has been really good overall. I've only had one keyboard I wasn't real in love with, but most of them are really awesome. So
all right. So
just a couple of things for me. Would love, because you don't really see it on a laptop keyboard. Love a keyboard with backlight. I can see the keys in the
top. Yeah, right. I understand that.
You guys are all really focused on laptops.
Yeah.
And like the screen resolution. Screen resolution on laptops suck. They still suck. Many of them not even 1080p.
Yeah. The high resolution on the laptop is important.
Sure.
I mean, I got a tablet and a phone with higher screen resolution than most tablets on the market. Not most laptops on the market. It's ridiculous how low screen resolution laptops are.
Well, so what about on a desktop though? Like, what do you look into for a desktop? Like for the ultimate desktop?
Quiet.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Quiet.
Quiet and power, and also not having to wonder, okay, what am I maxing out now, or do I have enough resources to do this?
So expandability.
Yeah, exactly.
Powerful.
Yeah, power and expandability and quiet. Those are
case quality too. Case quality.
While I want the quietest computer, I want the loudest clacky keyboard to show that I'm actually working.
Right, I know what you mean.
Old IBM style. Clack.
Yeah, they gotta
got
get the
one
cherry
of these
switches.
There's a few people who mumble with very loud keyboards, so I can.
Yeah. Al, well, on TechSnap, I often joke that Alan's keyboard is the third host because he's got one of those Razer with the clackies. Yeah, so this is what I'm thinking for a desktop's quiet expandability, case quality. It sounds like on a laptop we got keyboard, backlight. It's funny because so far nobody said battery life or wireless.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, the battery life. Yeah, that would be helpful.
In
Well, it
any
depends on, like,
situation
with the
or
operating
build I
system, to be
want,
honest.
I always want an SSD, no matter what,
Yeah.
desktop or laptop.
Yeah.
No way I'll ever go to a hard drive.
Yeah.
Now.
SSD is kind of getting just the only way to go now.
And it
So
gets cheap.
the only feature on a laptop that is a go no go for me is if the keyboard doesn't have a touch point on it. I don't want it.
Like
That's
the
it.
little nipple.
Yep. If it hasn't got one, I don't want it.
Really? Yeah. See, for me,
I've
that's
I've
how my
spoken to
Asus
the System 76 guys about it, and I was
Yeah.
like, dude, last time I bought a laptop, I bought a ThinkPad, and if you had a nipple on your laptop, I would totally have bought it.
I feel like
I'm
that.
the opposite.
Multi-touch
I can't-
touchpad as well, so do scrolling. Multi-touch
Going back-
touchpad, so do scrolling.
Okay, yeah.
I'm the opposite. I
Also-
hate those nipple things. I think
Yeah.
it hurts my finger.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Well, with all due respect, you're wrong.
Okay, all right.
Well, see, for me, I feel like I should be buying at dinner first or something. It just feels weird. It just feels incredibly intimate and awkward. I don't know.
Also, I would say
Yeah,
the,
Popey's all about his nipples.
Oh yeah,
It's how you caress it, whether it's good or not.
I'm Scaramanga. I have 3.
also
Or Chandler.
Going back to the touchpad, I would say mix like the clickable buttons. I cannot stand touchpads without clickable buttons.
Right, actual
Right.
clicks.
Because that's how
Not,
my Asus is. And that's
You need
the
that
only thing I hate
tactile.
about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. The trackpad. I feel like right now, which is funny because it doesn't match what you're saying. But even though I completely agree with you, I feel like the only people who have the one button trackpad really great is Apple. Because even on my Bonobo, I totally can use it. In fact, I appreciate that it has 2-finger touch scrolling, like because that is a very natural kind of way to like scroll a web page and stuff. But generally, like if I'm going to sit down, like when I'm doing LAS, and it's partially how I sit too, but I still prefer to go to a physical mouse, and so that's why I like. Is the trackpad or the nipple? Is it really that big of a deal? Is it a make it or break it?
Kind of like the touchpad that you can do like a zoom in for like a Google Earth, and where you can do the multi-touch on the touchpad.
Well, my
The
trackpad
nice
is
thing
like-
about the
Go ahead, Pope.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Pope.
The nice thing about the nipple is with the middle mouse button, you can hold your, like, if you imagine holding your index finger on the nipple and your thumb on and your thumb on the middle mouse button, you can use that for scrolling. So basically when I'm laying on the sofa and I've got my laptop, I'm making such minimal movement. I look like I'm dead.
So your thumb
But,
is on a
you know-
trackpad still? So your thumb is scrolling on the trackpad?
No, the middle mouse button. It's got 3 mouse buttons below the spacebar.
Oh, right.
Okay, so
The
for you, it's
ThinkPad.
about effective behavior. It's about an effective experience.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I have the only thing I want on a laptop is the button to turn off the trackpad.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah,
built in
I
funky
just
key.
install an app for it. I forget what the hell it is, but yeah.
Yeah, I have. It's funny. I have a button on my Bonobo. If I hold down Function F1, it turns off the trackpad, and if I hold down Function 1 turns all the fans on at full blast, which is funny because
really?
the Bonobo is quite well ventilated. It has 2 big fans in the bottom of it, and then it has these big vent outtakes in the back. So I've never actually heard it kick up to full fan speed until the day I accidentally pressed Function 1 and just I was like, whoa, this thing's really is going to take off.
It's like Airwolf in your lap or something.
But now that I know, it's like every now and then I'm like, yeah, I'm about to do something that's a lot of work. Maybe I'll just kick the fans up for a second, and then I just smack it.
That's pretty cool.
Rev the engine, Matt.
And there's also those
saying,
apps you can install
"Punch
that
it."
will actually keep it when you're typing on your keyboard and your mouse, your touchpad's being bumped into. You need to be able to disable that too.
Also,
So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Going back to the laptops, make sure it has enough ports too, because a lot of times you only get like 1 or 2 USB ports.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it for both workstations and laptops. So let's first do laptops. I'm writing all this down for our review. So okay, on laptops, connectivity. So we're talking USB is a must. Now USB. Now remember, we're getting less and less ports these days, so we got to keep it realistic. HDMI out, is that a must?
No,
Yes.
not for me.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll exchange it for USB any day of the week. I want USB ports, just like I want it to look like a UFO.
So maybe we'll just should we split the
I want it to be
difference
a-
and say we have to have good video out?
Yes.
So video out.
because it's really handy if you've got like a HD TV, you've got Netflix or, well, because it works on Linux now, you can just shut up your laptop, put it underneath your TV, connect a wireless keyboard and mouse, and then you can just sort of like surf on your laptop and use it as sort of like a home theater PC.
Yeah, to dovetail on that.
Yeah.
To dovetail on that, you know, if it's got Bluetooth built in, that's amazing
That would be
because I
nice,
can just
yeah.
flip on a Bluetooth mouse and go.
Firewire at 100. The Bacon Flaps is mentioning nobody said anything about price yet. I guess that's a scaling kind of requirement.
That's a scaling thing. It depends what you value. But honestly, I want this thing to look like a hub. I want USB ports all the way around it. I mean, I want danglers dangling, and I mean, yeah, I'll give up HDMI any day.
No, but what would you want to use? No, sorry, what would you use the USBs for? Because if it's
I never know. I never need them until I'm missing them. It's weird.
Yeah, that's the thing.
See, I'm in the same situation because my laptop only has 2 USB ports.
Mine has
and one of them I have
and I
filled with a
use
Bluetooth.
them up.
I've just bought
DVD drive?
I've just bought a 7-port USB 3 hub from Amazon that's arriving tomorrow because my laptop only has one USB 3 port and I want more.
Yeah. Well, I have like an old 2008 era System 76 laptop here, and it's got 4, which is good. But I would be perfectly happy with like 12, 8. You know.
Yeah, that'd be
How about
good.
a DVD drive? What's people's views on a DVD drive? I'm not really that big on them anymore. I don't.
Not anymore.
Optical is dead.
All right,
Legacy media.
Optical is dead. All right, so I can go with
keep
that.
It around.
I mean,
I keep it around. That's just because I burn DVDs for people.
Well, that's why you need that USB port.
Yeah, and I do, and I have external whatnot for that.
That's what I do now too, and
that's true.
Although, you know, when I spec'd the Bonobo, I went the direction of getting a disk drive, and now looking back on it, I do wish I had gone with like a third disk in that spot because, like with the CUDA machine they're setting us, you can actually do they have 2 slots for SSD for drives. And then you can swap out the optical bay for a drive if you want to. So you can do 3 SSDs in a laptop. Which is
awesome. Yeah.
Which, if you think about it, like you could dedicate an entirely separate OS to one of those drives if you wanted to. You could do anything. So yeah, I agree. Optical is probably dead. And all right. So that's a good list right there, you guys. Thank you. So that'll be, just kind of wanted to get some updated requirements from folks.
Also, one more thing is,
I was going to get 3D, passive 3D, but that's a little bit different for laptops.
There is one. There's, your microphone and headphone port.
Yeah.
They're merged together nowadays on the more recent models.
Yeah, they are. You're right. Yeah, audio jacks. Yeah.
So they have to determine whether or not they want the 2 separate jacks or one which is combined together.
Right.
The one that's combined together, you can get an adapter for pretty cheaply on Amazon, so that's really not too much of a factor.
Yeah.
Well, some people have these very specific mics, simply just how they don't ever want to change programs. Sometimes they have this special microphone that they want to plug in, which is not, like what they're used to.
Very true. Very true.
True.
All right. Anything else before we go?
Yeah, make sure no weird proprietary connectors like Ethernet adapters.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. A lot of these ones
gotta have Ethernet. I'm gonna write that down. You gotta have Ethernet.
I think
Serial port. I really like it.
Absolutely.
I've been trying to hack a satellite system for a few years.
This is totally serious. I would love to have multiple eSATA USB combos.
Yeah. That's a nice to have for sure. I love having eSATA on the Bonobo.
Who uses just curious, like the old laptops used to have these PCIe sort of slots. Do anyone use them anymore?
No.
PCMCIA?
Just for the just for like for the wireless.
I'm staring at an old Orinoco wireless speed card right now.
SSD drives on there.
I've seen some hacks where people set out NVIDIA graphics cards using the PCIe socket on a laptop.
Oh, that'd be kind of wild.
Yeah. Q5 Sys in the chat room votes for parallel port. All right. Well, that'll make the now. I don't think we're gonna have these in time for next last. I think they're arriving Monday or so. So we'll probably have them in the following last. But I'm looking forward to it. So I think what we're probably gonna do is we'll go after the laptops in one episode, and then we'll abuse the heck out of the Leopard in the following episode after we've thrown a week of just batteries of tests at it. So I think that'll be good.
All about punishing it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you to our Mumble Room for joining us today, and thank you to Solomon from the Docker Project for calling in at the beginning of the show. That was great to get an update from them. And don't forget, guys, you can watch the show live on Tuesdays. We begin at 2 p.m. Pacific over at jblive.tv. Show up about a half hour early to get the pre-show, and you can contact us. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, pop that contact link, and just choose Linux Action Show. I don't even know if we have a separate entry for Unplugged in there. And then fill out the contact info and send it in. We'll read it on a future show. We love to get your follow-up. That way we have a thread through each episode. All right, Matt, we'll have a great week. I'll see you on Sunday, okay?
Sounds good. See you then.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of Linux Unplugged. Don't forget to download us, subscribe to us, and even rate in some of those other places, including Stitcher now. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of Linux Unplugged. See you next week.